C'était, de dire au revoir puisque j'arrive en fin de mandat ici au Burkina Faso et je me devais donc, de venir voir, le président pour le lui dire. Je suis très fier, très content de
When a European Union delegation touched down in Burkina Faso this week, they were expecting to find a struggling nation still trapped in the grip of poverty and instability. Instead, they were stunned. Clean streets lined with solar-powered streetlights. Massive construction zones buzzing with Burkinabe workers. No foreign contractors in sight. Steel factories built from scratch, now humming with life. Children walking into new, fully solar-powered schools. "This is not the Burkina Faso we were told about," whispered one diplomat to another. Indeed, it wasn't. It was something greater. Led by 36-year-old Captain Ibrahim Traoré, this landlocked nation is rewriting Africa's story without loans, without dependence, and without apology. Today on a Frick Vibe News, we dive deep into the moment EU officials saw, for the first time, a Burkina Faso that is rising, with African hands, African steel, and African pride. This is not the Burkina Faso they expected. European Union delegates flew into West Africa with suitcases full of policies, talking points, and expectations, but what they saw left them speechless. Clean streets, swept by tens of thousands of volunteers. Factories, buzzing without a single European contractor in sight. Solar grids, lighting up villages once left in darkness. And above all, a youthful president, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, commanding it all with vision, humility, and unapologetic African pride. This is a Frick Vibe News, and today, we take you inside the moment the EU realized. Africa is changing, and Burkina Faso is leading the charge. Protocols followed. Smiles exchanged. But what happened next wasn't in the briefings. The arrival was formal. The EU officials were scheduled for a courtesy tour, standard diplomatic inspection of West African governance. But they weren't prepared for what they were about to see. Then the water systems, community-run boreholes that gave clean water to thousands. This was a nation on the rise, without asking them for a dime. But he silenced critics not with speeches, but with results. Their motorcade glided across roads recently rebuilt, not by French contractors, but by Burkinabe engineers and youth corps trained under Traoré's new national workforce program. "Who built this?" one diplomat asked. "We did," came the proud reply from a local engineer. Then came the markets, clean, vibrant, solar-lit at night. Then the schools, fully operational, 100% solar-powered. The EU was stunned. This wasn't the aid-dependent, unstable country they had read about in reports. Burkina Faso will rise by the hands of its own people. Captain Ibrahim Traoré took power in September 2022. At just 34 years old, many doubted him. Over 50,000 citizens, men, women, children, came together to clean every street, drain, and gutter in the country. He immediately cut bureaucratic waste, redirected military focus to protecting farmers and infrastructure, and nationalized key sectors of development. He created a parallel system of governance, where traditional leaders, youth, and workers were given real decision-making power. He inspired volunteers, not with promises, but with action. His message was simple: we will no longer depend on those who wish to control us. And that's exactly what happened. The EU delegates arrived just days after a historic nationwide initiative, the One Nation, One Week cleanup campaign. No World Bank funding. For pride. For ownership of their streets, their future, their image. But Burkina Faso partnered with local engineers, Pan-African innovators, and grassroots cooperatives to make it happen. No UN supervision. It has no oil reserves. But it has the sun, and Traoré is using every ray. No NGO handouts. Hidden from the headlines was a network of steel plants, built in partnership with Mali and Niger, with the goal of manufacturing construction materials domestically. Just pure national will. They clean not just for hygiene, but for dignity. And that image stunned the EU observers. One diplomat was overheard saying, "This level of civic participation, we haven't seen this even in Europe in decades." Traoré didn't just lead a government. He sparked a movement. Burkina Faso is landlocked. It is farming. Under his leadership, Burkina Faso launched a national solar initiative, building thousands of solar microgrids, powering homes, schools, and hospitals that were once left in the dark. Foreign observers thought it was impossible without Chinese or Western funding. Villages once forgotten are now digitally connected. Clinics once closed at night now operate 24/7. It's not about waiting for aid. It's about using what we have, Traoré famously said. And he meant it. Another surprise for the EU, Burkina Faso's quiet industrial revolution. These plants are producing rebar, rods, and sheet metal for the country's national reconstruction effort. Roads, bridges, homes, all built with Burkinabe steel. The EU wasn't just surprised. They were worried. And no, the raw materials aren't being shipped to France anymore. They're staying in Africa. The soldier is now a builder. The youth is now the leader. This is not just economic policy. It's economic warfare against dependency, against resource theft, against colonial legacy. One EU trade envoy looked over the operation and muttered, "This changes everything." Indeed, if Africa begins to process its own raw materials, Europe loses its grip. Captain Traoré's military is not just fighting terrorism. In a radical policy shift, Burkina Faso deployed its army to protect and assist farmers, rather than relying only on foreign troops or contractors. The result? More land reclaimed, more food grown. This wasn't the Africa they left behind, and it certainly wasn't the Africa they expected. More lives saved. Burkina Faso is now producing enough to feed millions and exporting to neighboring nations. The farmer is now the hero. Burkina Faso has redefined what national development looks like. Make no mistake, they saw a country developing rapidly, without Western loans, without French oversight, without IMF chains. They saw Traoré building alliances with Mali and Niger, talking openly about a united Sahel federation, even hinting at a future Pan-African economic bloc with its own currency and military. They saw a people who no longer feared isolation, but embraced self-determination. For the EU, this was a nightmare scenario, a successful African model that rejects dependency. And yet, for Africans watching across the continent, it was a dream come true. Traoré's model is spreading. Africa is inspired. And Burkina Faso is rising. In Mali, Assimi Goïta is mirroring the steel and solar blueprint. In Niger, the military government is applying the community cleanup model. In Guinea, local governance councils inspired by Burkina Faso are being formed. Even South Africa and Kenya are closely watching the new Sahel alliance. The African Union is no longer just listening to Europe. It's now taking notes from Ouagadougou. Africans are learning that real independence isn't in words. It's in who builds your roads, who powers your homes, who controls your minds. Burkina Faso has become a classroom, and Captain Ibrahim Traoré is the teacher. As the EU delegates boarded their flight back to Brussels, their faces said it all. They came to evaluate. They left re-evaluating everything. Burkina Faso's transformation under Captain Traoré isn't just a national victory. It's a continental signal. A signal that Africa is tired of being managed. A signal that youth can lead. A signal that development without debt is not only possible, it's already happening. And above all, a signal that the era of African dependence is over. From the streets of Ouagadougou to the fields of Bobo Dioulasso, a new energy is rising. Not funded by Paris, not advised by Brussels, but built by the African people, brick by brick, ray by ray, seed by seed. Europe is shocked. This is a Frick Vibe News, bringing you the untold stories of African power.